Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Alicia Brashay here at Cosmic Gateway in conjunction with World Unity Week. And I am joined here by Peter Maxwell Slattery. He is an international best-selling author, a speaker, an educator to assist people with spiritual development. He's also an ET contactee and does amazing things in the space. So welcome, Peter. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on. Hello, everyone.
And also another fellow Aussie. So, it's great to see other Aussies in the space and the work that you do. And, we're talking offline just before, and just to give people some context, we came in contact. I attended one of your sky watches many years ago, and that was sort of an opening for my pathway. So you've certainly had a profound influence in my journey, and now to continue watching the work that you do is very inspiring. But for those who are watching who aren't familiar, do you want to share a little bit about your journey in where you're at now, and what are some of the things that have been pivotal in your path? I know that contact was probably the catalyst, but if you'd like to share.
Yeah, definitely. So these days, what I'm mainly focusing on is what I could call self-mastery. Of course, I'm a yoga teacher, meditation teacher, remote viewing. Like I've done many different disciplines, but it's not about the disciplines either. I find it's more about training and reconnecting with what you know on a transdimensional level to basically assist you with what the journey is now. So it's basically like all those things were like boot camp to get me to where I am now. Of course, there's a lot of contact which is ongoing. I do have one of the most documented, we could say, cases in history in terms of modern times with video evidence, witness testimony, analysis of things. But like I say to people, even these otherworldly beings, in my opinion, are still going through their own ascension process. And this is even if they're light beings, they're still ascending because they're not purely ascended yet. Now, we could say, of course, they're at a higher vibratorial state in terms of enlightenment and what have you, but consciousness and awareness, when you're interfacing with God, source, creator, you're at a state of consciousness where there is no light, there is no sound, there is no physical matter. You're in that blueprint, that unified field of all that is. And this is really something that through, of course, the best-selling books, the Book of Shiji 1, 2, and 3, and other books that I've done, that it really brings it back to the ETs aren't gods, they're our greater family. Mm-hmm. And that it's really up to humanity to really up the bar with what's going on in terms of how we are really capable of so much more than what we know, even more than what they are, from what they've shown me, that it's really clean-up time. But I find that with this cleanup, it's also got to do with one's epigenetics. So it's not just us coming in and experiencing this reality, but the body computer has so much trauma and stuff involved with it that this is really a transdimensional cleanup. So really, yes, these days in groups and workshops and things like that, and I'm opening Jaya Sanctuary as well, to where I'm focusing on this. Mm-hmm. But of course, there will be workshops we could say on, CE5, initiating contact, those types of things. But I'm trying to mingle the whole thing together to leave people with tips and tools to empower themselves, rather than come to me for connecting with their guides every time. Like with the appointments that I do, I'd rather leave people with modalities, techniques, and methods after helping them, so they can start to be their own master. And that's sort of where things are now, but it has been quite a journey.
Yeah, and that's what I love about your work is the capacity that you give to empower people to have their own experiences, and that's that blend of like the spiritual teachings and also the galactic component. So where did it all begin? I mean, we don't have to go through the whole story, obviously, because it's probably quite a long one, but what are some of the key points that sort of brought you into, obviously you've done a lot of training in a lot of different modalities, which has probably brought a really beautiful fusion into what you impart to others now?
The way I describe it is around 7, there was telepathy coming through, which later I found it was a being from the Pleiades known as Shiji. But there is a few things before that, but I don't talk about it much just because it's sort of vague. There's like flashes of imagery, but really the physical contact started between the ages of 8 and 12. And that's what I'll describe as they look like greys, but they're like a white ash color.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, they were white, but the texture of the skin was like ash, like cigarette ash. It's sort of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can see it as you're explaining it. Yeah.
yeah. And that was like about 4 years of intense contact with these beings that I now know are the guardians. They're basically transdimensional beings that have been designed to be able to work throughout all planes and dimensions for, we could say, work for the higher dimensions. But how would I describe it? They've got their own consciousness. They're nothing negative, though. There are, we've all heard these stories, and I've experienced, of course, different types of greys that aren't in that alignment. So that was really the early contacts. And then 12 years old, I had my first UFO sighting in Albury.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the way I describe it, it looks like a disc. If you pulled a weight off the end of a weight bar and put it sideways, it was like a matte. It was dark grey, but it wasn't super dark. And it went in front of a hill in my hometown called Red Light Hill.
Mm-hmm.
And this thing would have been about 3 times the size of a football field. It was massive until it just went out of view. And I had experiences later with that craft again in later years, but it was pretty much dormant for probably about a 15-year period in terms of the contact. But I had a lot of what we could say is high strangeness and paranormal phenomena.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that we could go ages on that. But then I had, sightings would continue. And then all of a sudden in 2010, I had a handful of sightings that ended up on the news. I had people with me when they happened. And yeah, it was a repeated thing that kept happening and happening. And then I'd start to have these blue spheres, orbs appear in my home that eventually would come in, and they would be manifested into these 7-foot tall liquid sort of blue. It's almost like the blue behind you.
Yeah. Okay.
Liquid blue light. And it was later revealed that these beings are the Elohim, meaning basically our highest expression, the way it's been revealed to me, is the Elohim. So the way I describe it is, if your body's God and each cell that makes up the body, that's our highest self as a collective. That's
Mm-hmm.
a part of the overall collective. And we divide off from that, and then we actually go fractal and experience all these realities at the same time, which people sort of, they're not having a go, but they're having trouble trying to understand me recently talking about how reincarnation is even illusionary. It's real, but it's not. And the point of that is that understanding reincarnation is a linear way that you'll start to understand a transdimensional concept that we're experiencing everything at the same time. And this is what they've showed me. It's not something that I go on about meaning, oh, this is just me theorizing. A lot of what I do talk about, unless stated otherwise, is what I've been shown and experienced. And like I say, I can trust certain types of beings that I'm in contact with because of the fruit of the information.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you can decipher what's positive and negative. But after those, we could say, introductions, that's when Shiji came in, and I realized, going back to 7, oh, this is the lady that's been talking to me in my head for pretty much my whole life. So from there, basically, the experiences continue to this very day. Whether it's, sightings of crafts in the sky or visits from the beings, because a lot of these have been physical interactions, or I'm taken to the other realms or even other places. So that's sort of like a thumbnail sketch of something that, yeah.
I appreciate that. I know that it can be long story, but to condense it, just to give people a overview. I like what you're saying about, the ascension that's happening, not just here on planet Earth as humanity, as a society, but also on the different dimensional levels, and how that, is interlinked. Can you talk a little bit more about that and the importance of that?
Yeah, so what I do know is that what's happening here is having what we could say a snowball effect on the rest of the cosmos in terms of its development as well. So there is this process where sort of what's happening here is stunting the evolutionary growth of not just universal source, God creator, but also the beings in the other realms.
Mm-hmm.
And what's happening here is almost like a cancer on God source creator, even now affecting the other universes which have been shown. And I'm not talking about a parallel universe. I'm talking about a different God with its own planes and dimensions, which I was once shown. Right now, let's take it to a new level. Let's call the body now super God.
Yeah.
or super God consciousness. I'm just saying that just for the sake of it. And that each cell that makes up its body is actually a different universe, a different God with its own planes and dimensions, which eventually we can leave this universe and we'll create our own. We sort of divide off from two, our God cell, Elohim, and it creates its own universe. So there is this process where all the things that we're experiencing is about evolutionary growth, but we leave source to go out within source to experience and gain knowledge for the overall collective. And it basically rejuvenates like a cell does in our body every 7 years. So this universe will, the way I was shown is it's a toroidal field that's like an implosion explosion to where it's got a field continuous, but it like rejuvenates. So there is a process right now where there are a lot of beings that aren't, we could say, in alignment with humanity's interests.
Mhm.
And there is what we could say an artificial intelligence out there that is assisting them behind the scenes that they actually created. But there's this point where, like I say to people over time, that you start to realize that the what I call the lower light, the negative side,
Mm.
they've got their place in all this to raise one's consciousness to where you don't want to operate in that system. You don't want to be affected by it. So in effect, you're raising your consciousness to where it stays down here and you're raising up here. And this is just part of it. But there is something special about humanity, in my opinion, about all beings, but there's something in particular about us that we're a conglomerate of many different races, that we even have abilities once acknowledged, even on a celestial level down to what we could say a physical, biological level as well, of what we can do is even what the angelic energies can do, but we can actually surpass them. We're unaware of it from the communications I've had with them. So it's really an in-depth thing that I hope I'm just explaining it okay, or it's digestible.
Yeah.
It's layered. People want black and white, but the shade of grey in the middle is
It's
big.
vast.
It's vast. And we'll say it's more than 50 shades if people get that joke. Yeah, it's got a bit to it. And this is where I say to people, just don't look at things as in black and white, yes, no, because the but in the middle is it's a case by case sort of basis. So yeah.
And I would say to people, like, I'm able to follow you, but it took me many years to sort of come into that awareness and understanding. And if this is sort of new information for you, sit with it and feel into it, I think is what's really important, because the mind may not be able to conceptualize it, but if you're sort of taking it in on an energetic level, over time that will start to develop into your own understandings. At least from my own experience. I know some of these concepts come at me and I'm like, and I'm sure you can say the same. And then
Even
as
for me digesting it through experiencing it is because I think this is the hard part with it, is that we are multidimensional beings.
Mm.
But what's going on is that I'm talking transdimensionally, where even if people are experiencers or knowledgeable on this stuff, because we're having the human experience, they're still observing and perceiving things in a linear way.
Yeah.
Like reincarnation is linear. You go from life to life. There's this process, but I'm talking about unbounded 360-degree bang. It's like it takes it to a new level to where you need to get out of the mind and get into the heart. The mind will analyze it, but the heart will also use the mind to make things right in the way that we can perceive it and digest it.
Mm-hmm.
So it is something that people have to feel it. And I'll be the first to say, don't believe me. Go on your journey and go with what resonates. But there will be a point in time that people will start to say that this is a component of it. Just like now, more than ever, I've got so much of what we could say the spiritual community coming to me that we're into the angels and the tarot cards and all that stuff, which is great. They're understanding the ET concept. And then a lot of the ET people are now going, oh, I get the spiritual concept now.
Mm.
And you even get this with the paranormal community. Everyone's starting to sort of get it.
Yeah.
And it's just conscious evolution. That's the thing. It's dropping that guard down of what I believe, because believing's useless. It's what you know, and staying in truth until you can find that knowingness. So there's knowingness and belief is useless unless you actually know. But that's where being open-minded and open to all possibility and accepting what you don't know, that's what's going to get you to the truth. That's what's going to get you down to the nitty-gritty stuff. But it is a process. But I think, especially now, what I've seen over the years doing this and helping people is that each year that goes by, the people that are waking up that time are opening up exponentially quicker than those
Oh,
before them.
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
tell people, look, mine was a journey, but your journey is going to be fast tracked to about a quarter or a third of the time, just from the fact of what's happening evolutionary conscious wise here now.
100%. And do you like, I mean, the way that I see that is more people that are in that frequency of their own process, however you want to call it, it accelerates it for those that are coming online because there's a higher bandwidth that's being held within the collective field. Is that?
Yeah, it's what we could say almost like the 100th monkey syndrome. You know, it is a similar thing, because what's happening is there's a conscious grid that connects all humans, and those that are like holding the space or opening their consciousness, whether people want it or not, it's being affected. Just like we could say, I've talked about this the last few days with friends and family. Like, we have a scenario where you get up in the morning and you watch the news. I've watched it probably a couple of times last year to try and find out what was going on. Besides that, I don't even have a telly, but it's like all it is blood, guts, and drama. That's what we've got, and we don't have any positive stories. So you see this sort of affects humanity, where when you've got positive people that you surround yourself with, when you're doing stuff that's productive in service to others, you start to vibe with that, and that's what you draw to, and that's what you experience, and that's how you assist each other. So whether people realize it or not, those that aren't even open to this, they're being open to it on a spiritual level, on an ethereal level, just for the fact of how many people now are waking up. So it's sort of this tug of war between enlightenment and a draconian system. It's sort of whether they realize it or not.
Yeah, beautifully said. Beautifully said. So obviously this is, in collaboration with World Unity Week. So I just want to sort of throw a couple of questions in there. In terms of your own path, what are some of the things that have helped you find unity or ongoing? What are some of the things that have brought unity within yourself, and how do you see that impacting in the greater collective of humanity and beyond?
The way I could say it is that I think these days, after the wide scope of people that I've worked with and I know, just even around the world, everyone suffers somewhat. I don't care if it's a billionaire. I don't care if it's somebody on the street. I don't care if it's people think they're doing all right. Everyone's got some form of suffering or regret or trauma or something that's gone on within them. And before they can really step into their power, they've really got to analyze themselves and step into themselves. And a lot of the time people go years and it's projection.
Yeah.
Everyone else. Now, of course, there's things going on that we don't agree with, whether it's through the structure of the way that the world operates or what have you and what's going on. But with that said, I think once people finally get that their life is just a story rather than operating in that story, which is getting down to the basics now, is I'm this, I'm that, or this happened to me, or this traumatic event happened. And I feel sorry for everyone everyone's gone through something. And of course, some people have gone through it way more than others, what have you. But there comes a point where there's got to be, do you want to operate in this frequency much longer? And that knowing the rest of your book is unwritten.
Yeah.
And do you want to keep, when you meet somebody, go, hello, and then go on about your trauma, this is me, or hello, this is me, and create as you go along, shift those energies. And this is where, when we look at society, so many people are stuck in their ways, whether it's with religion or philosophy or whatever it is, that people are stuck in their ways. And it's okay to have your little niche, and what we could say again is your belief system, but it doesn't need to be imposed on others. And this is where acceptance and it comes into unity. Now, I'm not saying that we've got to endorse what the Illuminati and all these other groups do, sacrifices, and I'm saying, all right, let's just accept it. No, I'm not saying that at all. But there comes a point, it's like we could say a parent with a child, they're going to ride a bike. They start off with training wheels and the kid's wanting to get the training wheels off, and you're like, oh, because they're going to stack, they're going to crash, they're going to get, cut up knees, and they're going to get scabs. Again, that's not all right. I don't want that to happen, but they've got to get on their own 2 feet. And that is a good possibility that they're going to have a few crashes. So it's letting go of what others think of you, what even you want others to be, and not having expectations of others either. Now, of course, you want people to be punctual and to be productive and all those things, especially in a workplace or what have you. But I think where a lot of people, relationships break up, friends have problems, or workplace, is people have expectations, and it's always about, well, I would have done this, I would have done that. And sometimes we've got to let go. And in that process, sometimes you'll actually learn something. Learn another way to do something that you wouldn't have seen. So this is where acceptance for everyone being who they want to be, as long as it's not imposing their way on others or hurting others, I think this is a key component, because everyone wants disclosure. But like I say, I'm not even worried about it. But if this is this drama we've got going on amongst the human race, we're pretty far off a proper, full-bounded, universal disclosure of being able to intermingle and communicate and even travel with these otherworldly beings, because this isn't the way that they operate. There are some that operate out there, but when you start talking about the high dimensional beings and the way they operate, there is a form of unity and acceptance amongst them. And like I said, as long as you're not imposing your way or hurting others, it's all good.
Do you think that we have a lot to learn from some of the beings that you interface with, or other people who are contactees, in terms of wherever their evolution is at as a society, as a race, and, you know, taking aspects of that into the human race to help with our ascension process? Do you see that as an aspect of wider contact?
It is, but like behind the scenes, what I know of what we've got, we do already have these advanced exotic technologies. Like I say, but if they're in a craft, they're still low level.
Yeah, right.
A lot of these things operating in their light vehicle known as the Merkabah, so they're able to manipulate. So there is a lot to learn, but the key point with a lot of the contacts is that we don't need them. We don't need them. We need to explore, and part of communicating with them, it's like being an explorer here, going to other countries, learning about other cultures, things like that. That's what we could be doing on a big scale. So with that said, especially with the Shiji material, everyone that reads it, not everyone, I'll say a large majority, when they come back and talk to me, they say, I know all this, but I don't know how I know it.
Yes.
How we know it. So really, I'd say what these beings are doing is reawakening us to who, what, and what we are on an unbounded level. Like, besides anything being in a suit, in a meat suit. So this is where things are really have got to be taken to a new level, rather than, this is why they sit back. Especially with the Pleiadians, that of course they're helping, but we've had a scenario where for so many different cycles within the last cycle, they've been seen as gods, so they've had to pull back because they're like, these guys aren't getting the point. And so they're not to be looked at to as gods, to anything special. Just where their level of consciousness is and where they are vibrating at right now looks like magic to us, but we've got the same capability. And they're just wanting us to reawaken to it. And there's others on an opposing side that are trying to keep us from waking up to it as well.
Yeah, it's the perfect playground for rapid growth, really, isn't it? When you have both components playing out in the one space. At least that's how I see it, you know.
It is. And this is what it comes down to, being the observer. Just being the observer, rather than getting triggered and letting the R part of the brain take over and going into reactionary mind and losing our crap. It's being the observer. A lot of the time, the thoughts, they're like clouds. They come, they go, they dissolve. And so it's training ourselves with that. And through that, with the science we look at today, especially Joe Dispenza's work, we start to create new neuron pathways in the brain to, once we acknowledge that which we're about to react to and start to catch ourselves on the triggers, we can start to basically rewire ourselves to respond a different way, rather than a unproductive, negative manner, to just letting it pass and moving on and doing something positive and productive. So it really does come down to that self-mastery, where a lot of these otherworldly beings, if they come in the presence of something like an argument or lower vibratorial states, like my friend John Vivanco says, the remote viewer, he says it's literally like throwing a brick at them. And I'm like, that's a good analogy. You might as well be doing that, because it's just frequency, how they feel when they're around those energies. So the more that we rise to the occasion, the more that these beings can interface, and we can start to go over time through a rollout of disclosure, exploring space and changing the war industry to a space exploration industry, but also we need to keep things on par with spirituality and technology. A lot of
Mm,
these civilizations
mm,
are using a form of artificial intelligence, but they're not using it in a way that could be detrimental to their civilizational way of life. They are in control. It's a part of them, not the other way around. This is why a lot of the crafts, they are artificially got an intelligence. Some of them are gleaned from the ones, we could say, body and consciousness, to where only that person can operate it. So it's really like a grown part of them. And
yeah.
some of the crafts are grown. Some of them are structured from living light, and it's a part of actually what their light bodies are able to manipulate because they're at that level of consciousness. So it's yeah, what it shows to me. But when people have emailed me, or they're really religious in a certain area, what have you, and they've got a problem, you can sort of see where people are coming from in terms of they're a glass half full type of person. Because what I'm trying to put forward is, if you take on board what I'm saying, if you're open-minded to it, the conclusion is this isn't it, and it is more bigger and beautiful, this existence, than one could ever imagine.
Mm,
And that's where people want to go into dogma and the hell and heaven and all this other stuff. It's just a state of consciousness.
mm, mm. So, what do you foresee in terms of the importance of humans as we evolve? Like, what is our potential as we, start to come into the resonance of love, unity, connectedness, remembering those aspects of who we are and our soul's journey? What is the potential in that, for the individual, but for a civilization?
Peace, harmony, learning things beyond anyone's imagination at this time. Of course, there's abilities. There's levitation and teleportation and telepathy, all these different things. But where we're at now is really the stepping stones, and we're going through a shift of consciousness. And I think a lot of us aren't going to realize it until we're through it.
Yeah.
And this has been in play for quite some time. So what, in all walks of life, whether it's, the medical establishment, even entertainment, through to spiritual development, technology, it's child's play where we're at right now with what we're capable of. And we are, even with what we say in the projects in the military industrial corporate complex, is child's play.
Yeah, it
It's
really is.
even though they might be 50 years ahead of us behind what we're seeing, like,
Mm,
especially recently with a lot of these videos, I was pointing out privately behind the scenes that pretty much 90% of the videos that I've seen are our crafts.
mm,
That they're
mm,
trying to
mm.
say something else, are our crafts. The first one was, I know more about infrared than pretty much anyone I've met. And that's not out of ego, but I've been studying it for many years. And straight away, I could tell that they were basically working with the aviation laws, the flickering lights on some of the craft with, what you see on just normal aircrafts, but it might have been triangular. So it's this thing where our capability is so big that don't get trapped in what the new box is. So the new box is, you're capable of this, but they're still putting you in a box. People need to be aware that they're capable of all possibility. You are the one that will put the limit of what we're actually capable of, not, one's who's analyzing it themselves. So there is a huge shift, but it needs to be kept in balance. This is where things like having a balance in your life, whether it's with spiritual practices, fun with family and friends, and alone time, friend time, partner time, whatever it is, having a balance in everything that we do. And it's not about working 9 to 5, but unfortunately people are in that system. But there's a lot more to experience. And part of what's special about this experience is the 5 sense reality that we feel limited by it, but being able to smell and touch and hug and feel these things, even to some of the extraterrestrials, they don't feel love the way that we do. But when they tune into us and they tune into the love that we feel, they almost like sit in that energy because it's so blissful. They're like, damn, this is like a drug. Like, they're not thinking that, but that's equivalent to what we would be thinking from that perspective, because
Yeah.
they're neutral, a lot of them. Like, I would say that even some of the Arcturians I come across, they're like Asperger's. They're like Sheldon from Big Bang Theory. They're technologically smart. They're spiritually even advanced, and they've got a perfect balance, but they're very neutral.
Yeah.
But that's the way that they operate in that way. And so we've got emotions and things that just they don't understand, which is why when they come here and experience this, we'll use the word reincarnation, they'll offshoot a part of them into here. That's why it's like very hard for a lot of what we could say is starseeds, because they feel like the black sheep where they've operated before. This isn't, there hasn't been a system like this, or there hasn't been division like this, or hate crime like this, or abuse in any form like you experience here. Though there is other planets that are similar, but it comes down to knowing that you're capable of anything, not, we could say believing it, but knowing it and sitting in that and raising your frequency to that, because everything is about being frequency specific. So the more you're doing affirmations, inner work, whatever it is, you could be doing a vision board, whatever it is that triggers you to keep on that goal. And it can help, of course, with physical possessions, but it's what I find is if you follow your passion and purpose is passion, which really we need to be stepping into now, anything that you need or you think you need is going to come into alignment with you and come into the picture as a byproduct. So there is this sort of, these beings aren't to be looked up to, but if anything, over many years doing this, I find that a lot of the contacts are about the individual. Again, not that I'm special, anyone's special, but it's actually about who and what they are.
Yeah.
And you've got twofold with contact, which takes it to us as a collective. There's contact individually and then as a collective, which is why I like doing the group work, because it starts to wean people into these beings. Like a lot of people could not handle with what I've experienced. It's not an ego. I know people have lost their crap when they've been with me and seen something and I never see them again. Like, you want to say something, be careful. But that's why the CE5 and the Skywatchers are great, because people that are open to it, they experience it, and then it takes them on their journey. Or sometimes people come that are contactees, but then it opens them up to doing it in a group setting because they've never had it in a group setting or found like-minded individuals. But the important thing is realizing that everything you think you know, your securities, everything like that, are first going to be taken away from you when you go through a leap in consciousness, because everything that's not frequency specific drops, whether it's friends, families, whatever. And then it goes through the rebuilding process, and that's the hardest part. But eventually people start to attract those that, again, that they're frequency specific to. So that people with similar goals, similar ideas, all those types of things, you start to attract what we call is the soul family or soul tribe. So it's quite vast.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because, in the work that I do and deal with a lot of, people who are, under the label of Starseed, but have, contact, it is a very hard, lonely journey for a lot of people. Initially in the beginning, trying to make sense of their experiences, and then what do I do with this, but it's, I've always tried to explain it that, sometimes in the beginning there, you start to tell people about your experiences and there's this mass exodus from your life. And in hindsight I can see how that's designed, because it's a frequency thing and it's not to be taken personal, although there's that human component that does grieve the loss of an old life or an old partner or an old friendship circle or whatever it is.
It's just as extreme as that. It really is, with the byproduct that happens from it. It really is. Yeah, sorry to cut you off.
No. So I mean, in my experience, and going back to going through one of the Skywatches with you, that was the first time I had consciously seen craft, and it was an amazing group experience, and be able to speak and meet with other people who are having contacted various different aspects of their journey. And then, literally a year later, boom, I was having, craft appearing, and I was being taken up on ship and having all these experiences, only to look back and realize that that was just when I came into consciousnness of it. Like, it was happening my entire life.
All time, yeah.
And I think that I call it like the wake up alarm clock, that's that time where the soul has chosen to come back into that remembrance. And these experiences are either amazing, they can be traumatizing, they can be confronting, but ultimately it's about what you were saying. It's about what we do with that. It's not just about having these amazing, profound abilities, but it's like, how can we utilize that into service?
Well, that's the key with what I'm trying to do now is how is what we're talking about or what's happening, not us now, but how is when people are doing what they're doing, how is it helping them in the here and now being productive? So that's where it comes to. I could talk about this stuff all day, but these days I don't talk about it much, meaning the ET side, even though I'm, I saw craft last night, I've been visited, like whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's like, how can you glean from whatever it is that's going on and help you be a better person and be of service now and be productive? That's what it comes down to. Because otherwise, if people want to be in the fifth dimension, go and do it. Go and do it. But you came here to help here. You came here to experience here. You came here to embody this experience. So this is where people are fighting. We've already been fifth dimensional beings. We've already been all that is. We actually are all that is. We're a cell of the overall collective experiencing itself. So it does come down to that part. And this is where I find that everything comes back to passion and purpose, purpose and passion.
Yeah.
And that's how stepping into those roles, like in the other civilizations, like sort of, we could say is sort of a blueprint. In the Pleiades, they have certain forms of artificial intelligence and drones and droids that are doing normal, what we could say, work that a lot of us are doing. We're seeing it now at the checkout. There's now machines that you can scan yourself and all this. Now, there's a productive and there's an unproductive way to go about this. This is where there's got to be a balance, because what they're doing is in the Pleiades, for example, they embrace what they're good at. They're encouraged to go and do new endeavors. But how they contribute to that civilization is through doing what they're passionate about and what they're knowledgeable in. And again, it doesn't mean if you're an engineer, you can't learn how to play music or you can't learn how to design crafts or whatever it is. It's just, it is what it is. So it's not putting one in a box, but what I can tell people is everything is basic in terms of what you do and what you think and what you say affects everyone and it affects everything. This is the biggest conclusion from my own experience, which was beyond extraterrestrial, that I can tell people is that what you do, what you say affects everyone and affects everything, no matter how minuscule, it doesn't matter. And this is where how are your thoughts, how are your actions, not only benefiting others, but how they're helping you become a better person and step into yourself and bring joy, love, and bliss into your life rather than more drama.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there is sometimes that I say God's going to throw you something, God, source creator, and it's going to make you do a 180. But where it can lead you to is exactly where you need to go, and you get it later. You have an aha moment later.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes down to you being an aspect of God's source creator. You're here for an experience. Sometimes there's things that we are meant to experience on top of what we think we're here for. But I use the analogy like, all right, put out for a brand new car. All right, I'll put out for, let's say, a brand new, we'll just say a Ford sedan. But God's source creator is like, I'm trying to give you a friggin' Tesla. And this is what you're settling for.
Yeah.
So what I say to people is set the bar high, but be open for anything bigger and better than what you're putting out for as well. Don't put yourself in a box, because that's for spiritual growth, evolutionary growth. I'm using a materialistic thing because people can relate to that more.
Yeah.
But the capability that we all have, I don't think we realize what we're capable of until we've gone through trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
Even with myself, the last many years of stuff that I've gone through privately and publicly, with that said, it's shown me what I'm capable of. That all just doesn't matter. And it's a lot of people's own insecurities, judgments, thoughts, that you get to a point where you build this armor of light on you, that it's not about debunking the debunkers. You'll see that I don't comment much. You'll see that I disabled comments a lot of the time, because all it is drama.
Yes.
I don't want drama associated with what I'm putting out there, because it brings a lower frequency.
Yeah. Wow.
And if people email me and it's a logical, good enough question, it's a question that's good, I'll email back. But of course, I'm a busy person as well, and it's not something that I like to pick and choose. But there's just a lot of nonsensical stuff out there sometimes that I think people aren't getting the point. But I learn from a lot of the people that do contact me and comment as well. I'm as much as a student as I am a teacher. Yeah. As soon as you think you're a teacher and that's it, you're trapped.
I always used to say, like, looking back at my journey, every time I got to a point where I thought that knew everything, or in some sort of concept, that was where the universe like bitch slapped me. And then
Yeah.
boom, away I went again. I was like, okay.
Slap you to the next dimension and bang. All right, I've been pulled up now. Time to open up again and be open to all possibility, because I thought I knew it. So it's
and it's good to laugh at yourself, you know.
You've got to with all this. There's not enough of these. People become too obsessed and serious, and it's got to be like I don't know. A lot of people at the Sky Watchers and that, when they meet me and see me, they're realizing it's more laughing and talking crap than there is anything else. But it brings the mood up.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Other than just being serious, it doesn't help with the type of things that we're trying to do. We've got to bring in the joy, love, and bliss, and those frequencies raise, which opens you up. So, yeah, it's the process.
Yeah, and I think that in itself, in its essence, I'm a big advocate for, you know, fueling your purpose and soul mission, because I truly believe that that's what we come here for. And yeah, a lot of us do have, you know, other dimensional experiences, but ultimately we're bringing that, all those components and experiences and knowledge and gifts into the physical reality to create a whole new way of being that is never been done before, in my opinion. You know, a lot of it is kind of finding your feet and how does this work, and okay, this, you know, this bit of information, how do I fuse that together? And I think that's the beautiful part of the creative space, and how we can you know, walk those uncharted pathways. In my opinion, you know, that has been the purpose of my experience in contact, is how can I
Definitely. There's no manual.
no, there's not.
Even when I'm showing people and teaching people, what I'm saying is, like, here's years of intense practices that I've done. And I don't mean like, oh, I'll meditate for half an hour a day. I'm talking like there was a year's period where I'll do an 8 to 12 and a half hours. These days, sometimes I'm doing 4 hours down to an hour of practices. And it's not about that either. A lot of people come and they expect to be able to jump in the deep end straight away. Some people can, some people can't. But what it is whether it's me or you or anyone else, when people come to us, it's going, right, here is what I can offer. These are the tips and tools and techniques that I can show you to empower you. You put it in your toolbox and now see what you can do with it.
Yeah.
Mix it up, change it, swap it around, use it, don't use it, whatever. But find what works for you. And you're not going to do that unless you start trialing whatever it is, because again, there's no manual. So
yeah. I love that you said that. One of my greatest statements that I always say is, when I teach someone a technique, I'm like, this is my way. Take that as, you know, a format, and go find your own way. It should be evolved. It should be adapted. It should be, you know, work within your own frame and context, and merge it with whatever you're already doing, and just keep evolving it in that way. And we're constantly then being able to tap into new ways of exploration, and being able to merge like our spiritual practices into, you know, daily whatever we're doing. I mean, I know you spend a lot of time out in nature, and sometimes that's the greatest sense of peace that I find, you know, when I go out and into the bush and just be in that stillness, to me is, you know, as rejuvenating as being in meditation. And it's about finding people's what works for them, you know.
you got it. That's what I've said to people. I've said to a lot of people in the past, like, some people might be better off swimming laps in a pool.
Yeah.
Or going for a hike. There's this thing where when we exercise or when we're doing a hobby, it could be arts and crafts, painting, whatever it is, you get into this zone where you're daydreaming, which is really no mind, which is God's mind, and you don't even realize you're meditating. So we do it when we drive on long trips, whatever. So this is what I'm saying. Find what works for you. If it's going for a walk for 15 minutes or swimming laps for 20 minutes in a pool, it's enough for you, if that's what it is. You don't have to be sitting on top of a mountain, like I say, like Muhammad Gandhi, sitting there meditating and thinking, this is how I'm going to reach enlightenment. You already got all that you need. It's just realizing and operating again within your own framework, like you'll say.
Yeah, beautiful conversation. I'm glad that we've come in and brought these aspects in. But I'd love to get you to talk a little bit about the sanctuary, and, you know, what your vision is, and, you know, if people are interested who live in Australia or Victoria, you know, what you're creating there, and what, I know you're still developing, but I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Jaya Sanctuary in Sanskrit, it does mean, we could say, a balance of masculine and feminine, also victory, but it also means self-mastery. So that's why I put it under that framework. But it's also ESETI Australia underneath an affiliate of James Gilliland's ESETI. So the motivation behind this isn't going to be something where it's going to be huge in terms of, I'm trying to keep small workshop groups, we'll say 15, 20 people, to where I'll be doing workshops. There will be meet and greet days or talks and meditation. So it's not going to be like huge events. It's going to be a bit of a balance between all that, intense workshops, things like that. So with this, I sort of want to incorporate like Qigong, Yigong, yoga, meditation, remote viewing, and then going in and being productive with it.
Yeah.
Connecting with the otherworldly beings. And it is a very high energy spot that I'm at, which I'm not going to reveal the exact location.
Yeah.
It's going to go shy, but it's about 30 minutes southwest of Albury, Wodonga.
Okay.
Give or take. And so it's acreage. There's like a workshop space. There's a medicine, galactic, we could say, type of medicine wheel. Pyramids for meditating, beautiful dam. It's just a great spot. So there's so many, that's not even all of it, but there's so much to this place that I've been putting so much work in and getting help from my brother as well, helping out, that I'm grateful for that, because it's just been a bit to get to where we want it. But the energy the whole time's been beautiful. So I'm hoping to open up around September, October. And there's a lot of people, not just in Australia, but worldwide, just wanting to come as soon as possible. But it's something that I'm making sure that everything's above board, everything's done properly. And I mean, in every single aspect, and that is, duty of care, safety, all those things, everything needs to be accounted. It's not just something you buy, wake up and go, here we go. I'm making sure that it's safe, happy, productive energy. The space is cleared constantly. So it's just a sanctuary where, again, like all practices, and I will be every now and then bringing other people in that are well-known speakers from around the world, and they'll be doing stuff as well and visiting. So it's quite exciting times.
It's very exciting. Is this something that you've had, in your vision for a long time, and having that come into reality?
I was told about 11 years ago I'd be doing this. And then about 3-4 years after that, I met James, and I didn't even know who James Gilliland was at the time. We hit it off. And he's like my brother, like he says, a brother from another mother, but I see him like my brother, my father, and my best friend all rolled into one. And I've got a great father and brother as well. So it's just adding him into the family.
Yeah.
But I was having visions of it years ago, and I got to the point where I just let go. I'm like, if the universe is going to do it, it's going to happen. It's just the way that it is, and things just worked out. So there is a lot more to it than that I'll eventually roll into it, because it's a bit of a story with the synchronicities and the events and the people that I met and how things came into fruition. But it's something that wasn't just, I'm going to open a sanctuary. You see so many people saying that, and that's fine. But it was something that I kept on getting told I'd be doing, and that I'll be teaching people to teach themselves and teach others. And it was just something repeated. And I'm just like, all right, well, if so, it's going to happen. And now it's happening. So it's being like water and going with the flow.
Yeah, beautiful. And that must be so exciting for you to have to see that come into manifestation, and just the flow on effect is what I really see, is that you being able to teach people to be their own self-master, and the flow on effect of how that impacts and changes the world, in their life, in their personal life, in their family, in their communities, and it has that ripple effect. So, wonderful work that you're doing there.
Thank you.
And you did touch on it, and I thought, I might bring this up, talking about hotspots. Obviously, where the sanctuary is a bit of a portal or a hotspot. There are other places, I know where I live is quite a hotspot too, but is there certain places around the world that you've noticed that have more, I guess it's the vibrational energy that supports contact, or showing up or craft? Is there?
Yeah, it's sort of, for me, I'll say it's a bit harder to talk about than others, just for the fact that anywhere I've gone in the world, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay,
It happens. But what I'll tell you is, when I've gone to so-called hotspots, there's an amplification of the what I see or experience, or if my
Mhm.
crew come through that I'm working with or what have you. So, of course, James Gilliland's place, Mount Adams.
Mhm.
There was a map that John Vivanco showed us, which is like a US government geosurvey map that's looking at like anomalous energies around the world. And I show this in the documentary I made for James called Contact Has Begun Too.
Mm.
And the energy coming off Mount Adams is more than the pyramids. The funny thing is, it goes off Mount Adams and it only goes out like in a line and circles only around James's ranch and comes back to the mountain. Only James's ranch it goes to. And he's about, don't quote me, I think he might be like 13 miles from the mountain. It's huge. It's about like, it might be 10, but the mountain's about 13 miles high. It's huge, but it only goes around his place. So that place is really like a portal. I went to Joshua Tree in the States. That was completely crazy, like daytime activity. That's sort of a well-known sort of place for a lot of people in the community go to. In Australia, I really think Mount Buffalo area is basically from Myrtleford to Mount Buffalo is huge. Mount Dandenong, John Vivanco again with edgeofwonder.tv did an episode featuring me, and he was remote being and looking at a lot of the activity that I filmed around Mount Dandenong area, which has got a bit of a combine of both energies going on there in different
Oh
parts.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll even say Albury, my hometown, it's on a lot of energy in Albury. A bit like Mount Dandenong, it's a bit of both. But yeah, I think when you feel these areas, like I went to Uluru, it's a power spot, but to me, it's like you've got these chakra points where there's always going to be stuff. And of course, it's a lot quieter out there. So it's an amplification of activity, being the Shasta as well. A lot of people talk about how the energies at Mount Shasta have changed these days, and it's just not what it was. There's still the energy there, but it's just not what it was. The energies are sort of shifted there. But yeah, there's a lot of places around the planet. I just think it's more where, yes, we've got these ley lines, we've got these energetic portal spots, but they do fluctuate and open, and they open up, they close down a bit, just like the chakras. It's got its own system going on as well. But I think you don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Just doesn't matter. Well, in my experience anyway, it's just being open, setting an intention to connect. And again, it's not just what people see in the sky, it's what's going on down low that people a lot of the time don't take notice of unless they're open to, and they're aware of what's down low.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Yeah, I've been to a lot of sacred sites, and I would go there, and I'd travel with my father. And I remember going to Machu Picchu, and he would say, "What are you feeling? What are you feeling?" I'm like, "Nothing." But the town below it, oh my goodness, the energy was just so rich and vibrant. So, it's sometimes it's not exactly in those spots, but it can be, other.
Perfect example. When I took James to Uluru, it was great. But when we got the Kata Judah, I felt like I was plugged into the electrical, mate. I'm like, I'm so blissed out right now. And then I looked at it more and more, and I'm like, all right, this is what we're here for. Not that's beautiful, but this is what we're here for. So yeah, it is like that. Sometimes it's something else just off the beaten path that you're meant to go and experience or go and see.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to share that's been important or pivotal in your journey, in your work, that comes to mind that would be helpful for people, no matter where they are? Maybe they're beginning to have contact, maybe they're curious about it, maybe they're opening up and starting their own spiritual practice. What would you like to share with those people right now?
What I would impart on people is just to have and try and learn patience. It's a big thing. And I think at the start, like if I look at where I was at the start of my journey compared to now, it's like you can't even compare the two. And where I am now to even where I'll be in 3 months next year, the year after, this will be child's play.
Right.
So knowing and not getting set in your ideologies or ways or belief system, knowing that there's always room for error and always room for growth, and being open to all possibility, but patience, because in this place, we could say affected by time through the 3 dimensions, or we could say including 4, but we're experiencing space time differently to other planets and other dimensions. And so where we've been and experienced before, even though that's happening at the same time, what we know on a soul level is unbounded. We do things through thought, instantaneous. Here there's a process.
Mm.
It's just like how you see a plant grow, the way that the universe has created that plant and the process and the cells and for it to evolve and grow. We're like plants ourselves. We're constantly growing, we're shedding, we're growing, we're shedding, we flower sometimes, we shed our leaves sometimes, we're going through a process. And I think knowing that God's got this and that there is a plan and a purpose for each person, but that you cannot understand the bigger picture sometimes. You've got a goal, you've got a vision, and that's cool. But there is these times where there's these, what we say, diversions, or, you know, the road's blocked here, you've got to go around and detour. We get a lot of that, and accepting and knowing that there's purposes and reasons for that. So patience, being kind to yourself, and just not being stuck in a certain way. Be the observer, because when you're the observer, you see a lot of what's going on rather than just a tunnel vision. And that's what I'll leave people with.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the work that you do. It's been a really beautiful conversation, and thank you for everyone who's watching now on the replay and also on YouTube. So on YouTube, I will put all the details of where you can connect with Peter and find more about his work if you feel guided to. And yeah, just so much love and gratitude for you. Thank you.
Yeah, much love, and thank you for having me on. And yeah, keep your head up, everyone, and follow your bliss.
Yeah, awesome. See you. Bye.